Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Writerly Conversations. It's May. We came off an amazing April National Poetry Month. We had an open mic night and even got to share some of our poetry. That was fun. So it's just been an overall great month. Okay, guys, so it is May, and so we've been talking about like books that inspired us over the past few months, different things that we were reading, things like that. And so this month we're going to kind of get back to our writing portion of it. So we thought about it, and we're like, we haven't really talked about like what our writing process is, right? Yeah, that's the right English way to say that. English is hard, y'all. So what our processes are, what we do for world building, where we are, how we're doing. So we are going to get into that. So I will have to say that my writing process has changed, especially like over the last year. Like where I was and what I was doing in January of 2020 compared to January 2021 and even to now in May is like completely different. And I think it's because I am learning the type of writer that I am now compared to the type of writer I'm used to myself being, if that makes sense. So when January came, I was like just new into the YouTube writing community. And one thing that I was learning from watching everybody around me was there is this hyper vigilance on word count and numbers of words and numbers of words and numbers of words. And I want to say that it got to about June of last year when I was like, I really don't care about words because I can get a lot of words out. Mm-hmm. I care about how many things I'm finishing. Mm-hmm. And so then when June came around, it was like, okay, what do I need to do? And how can I change it so that I'm actually finishing projects and not just writing thousands of words a month that don't turn into anything? Right. Because that was a very common thing for me. And so I am a pantser or discovery writer, as I prefer to say. So I couldn't transition fully into outlining, but I did begin to understand like the necessary need for like a skeleton outline or the necessary need for a page full of brain dump about my characters, about my world, about where I want the story to go, instead of like letting that live into my head. Mm-hmm. And so that became me realizing like, okay, now I need to have like a new process. So now it's more so like, I get an idea and I will like write everything that like comes to my mind from this idea. Like, what's the character that I see? Where is this place that they live? Are they in school? What's their family like? And I'll write that. And then, so to say that, usually majority of my stories come from characters that turn into stories rather than stories that I find characters to fit in, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not necessarily one of those people that has like a premise all the time, or maybe just like I have this character, like I want, like for the cozy mystery, like I want a Black girl to solve mysteries and be smart and not make stupid decisions. And that was what I wanted. And I was like, ooh, and she gonna crochet because people act like we don't crochet. So there were like things like I started to put her together, and then it was like now the story exists. Same with Jesus Never Went to College. Like I wanted to explore what it's like when you grow up in a Christian home and you finally leave like that hedge of protection from that home that you grew up in, and what those decisions look like that you're faced with and things like that. So for me, I would say that my process starts with the character and then figuring out like where the character is right now and where I would like the character to end up. And I have come to realize that for me as a writer, where the character ends up is not necessarily always the end of the book for me. And so like I've definitely been realizing that as I've been going. So then after characters usually comes, or the main character specifically, usually comes the setting. And that is like a whole nother ball game. So I guess like I don't know. Do I stop there? Like I told you the start of it. I don't know. This is such a hard question. Like I'm never sure how to answer process questions. So I'll like let you go. I feel like I've been talking for forever. So, and I'm a little hot.
Yes, fan yourself, hydrate while I take a swing. Okay. So two major ones, maybe a third that will come to me as I keep writing. But I write from multiple things inspire me to start an entire novel. Now, whether that's a good or bad thing, we don't know, but it is what it is. So I can be inspired by a premise. What if there was a world where X happened? What would a YA version of Broken Earth trilogy look like, right? Like ideas, like, oh, what would be a mix of Taken and Monday's Not Coming, right? Like those sorts of things can drive me. So a premise can drive me, an idea, a magic system, whatever, a world. The second thing is characters. So I may think of a character and be like, oh, she's really interesting. There's this girl living in my head who's becoming vocal, and I wanna talk to her, and I want to give her friends, and I want to talk about her family and her background and what does she want and why. And then the story comes from that. Lines for me, I'll do anything for a line. What would you do for a Klondike bar? Not as much as I would do for a line. I will do anything for a good line. Like I will make an entire novel out of one good bar. So I do that. And then the fourth thing is like social commentary or highlighting social problems. Like Tales of Eliza Black is about a Black girl who can hear the voice of the Black women. Y'all seen that on my channel. I wanted to talk about what made me go from having that be a serial published thrice weekly on my channel to a work in progress, a novel length work in progress, was that I wanted to really give more time and space to talking about disappeared Black women and girls. And I have another project in a YA category that I'm thinking of doing similar things. And so premise, characters, lines, and social commentary are the four things that prompt me to write.
Now, like, you got the character, you got the premise, you got the line, I got the character. So what is next for you? For me, it's the place and making that real. What about you?
For me, I am trying to lean more into my planning side of my plantster nature. And so previously, what would come from that was dialogue over everything. Like I will write like a zero draft for me, and I only kind of know what that is. I knew, but then I haven't used that vocabulary in a while. So like a first draft for me, such as it is, would be very dialogue heavy. There'd be dialogue and there'd be description, and we would just run with that. And the world around it would come in more clearly in draft like 2 or 3, but I am just chasing down these characters and their relationships. So when I have a character, I give them friends, family, and whatever. Then I want to see what the relationship is, what you want for those relationships, and where those wants for the relationships take you, who's rocking with you through the danger. That's what comes next for me. World comes way later than it should for me, and I'm working on that, but I'm very, very character centered. Like even after I move with my protagonist, I'm like, okay, secondary, who's next? Like it takes a while for the world to come for me.
Yeah, so for me, it's the world, because it's like I'm setting up like why my character is the way that they are. So like what influenced them, where they are. So like one of my favorite stories that I cannot wait to like jump back into and get into really hard that I started is We're All Mad Here. And it's because I put so much work into that world, like into the mental hospital that the main character like becomes the head of security of. I put a lot of work into the neighborhood in which like he lives and he raises his son as a single father, and like the school that his son goes to, and like the apartment that they live in, and the fact that like his sister lives there too, and it has been helping him raise, you know, her nephew and things like that. And so it's like as I build out the world, then the relationships come. Like it's like, okay, he's at this job, and now I'm describing this building and this mental health hospital, and like it's this hospital that, you know, when old buildings were made and then new stuff came, they started adding on the buildings. So like this place where elevators don't really make sense because they were an afterthought, not really in the actual planning of the building, like things like that, which are important. And for it to be like a psych thriller, like they're really important. Like those, like knowing that those elevators are not supposed to be there, so there's other things that could have been there before then, is like key for like him as the person that's head of security, and then for the reader as the person that's like, what's going on, what's gonna happen next, where are these people coming from that nobody knows about, so like things like that. And as I'm doing that, then it's like, well, there has to be one person that's on the security team that gives him a hard time because he just came in out of nowhere and is now the supervisor, but he's been there for 30 years. And then there has to be like a nurse that kind of finds him a little cute, but he's on his like trying to get, so I like it because the world helps me figure out the secondary characters a lot stronger, and a lot more, and I think it also gives me like things to think about for those characters, because it's like, yeah, so now I'm creating this neighborhood that he lives in so that his son can go to a very good school, but in that neighborhood everybody doesn't look like them, right? So that right there changes a lot of dynamics of everybody that lives in that neighborhood. That changes a lot of dynamics for how they feel, what they do, like things like that. So I'm excited about getting better at world building. I know we've talked about it like privately, as like we've had our like CP chats and whatnot. I know I recommended it to you because it was recommended to me, but I will link the book On Writing and World Building because it was recommended by Liselle Sandberry. I will also link her channel in the description box below.
100%. Like, you're saying such good things. Also take this opportunity to say, go subscribe to Liselle's channel. If you want some good writing tips, like, it's there, and she's very transparent about her journey. Go there.
So here's the thing. There are a lot of people giving advice in the AuthorTube community, right? Like, it's a lot of people.
She about to say something, alert. Go ahead.
Right. There's only one person I know that has 4 book deals before any book has seen the light of day. And that queen is Liselle Sandberry. So if there's anybody's advice I'm taking, is all I'm saying. I'm taking hers. And so this month it was one of the craft books that I bought. And so I'm excited to dive into it this month so that I can just enhance that, right? Because I feel like the one thing about world building I think is really important is it's one thing for the world to be real to the writer. It's a completely different and more important thing for the world to be real to the reader. And like you were saying with the Broken Earth trilogy, like we said with Inheritance trilogy, like you get immersed in these worlds and these cultures and you like, ooh, they different. But you're so immersed in what they're doing, you like, this is like, y'all really came up with these rules and these laws, and this is really how y'all think and how y'all maneuver. And it's not, everything isn't based off of our world. And I like that. As much as majority of the things that I write is contemporary, I definitely appreciate the world building that goes into science fiction and fantasy stories, because they do transport you to another world. And so although I'm not doing it in that capacity as of yet, I still want to transport people into these, because all the cities that I've created don't really exist, but I would like for them to feel real to the reader. Like, I would like for somebody to read the story and be like, let me look up, is Chessington Lake, Oklahoma a real place? Wait a minute. Because like as a kid, I sure did look up Stony Brook, Connecticut. I did with all my heart, because I was a babysitters club, and I was just curious, like, did she make this town up or was it a real place? And I think that is always like a mark of a good world.
Yeah, my world building is clumsy as heck right now. It's like patchwork. Like I'm like, oh, I should do that. So I go back and do that. And then I'm like, oh, also that. And I go back and do that. Like, it's clumsy right now. And it is what it is. Like, writing is a process. Like, all the greats that we love, real and true, did not start off like that. Writing is a process and you have to learn these things. So for me right now, world building comes when I'm like, the best conflict I feel like comes from two things: relationships and natural necessity, which is something that I'm working with right now. So like when you have conflict with a person, that's very easy to show on the page. And believable, because we fall into characters, we root for them, team this, team that, very like we stand culture. We do it all the time. And then natural necessity, if you are in a place that is experiencing environmental catastrophe, you very clearly can't stay there. That's its own conflict. So like, and those kind of conflicts are very believable. People don't question it. It's like, oh yes, of course. And it's immovable. You could reconcile with that person. You're not going to reconcile with an earthquake. You're going to have to move. So it just, I like those two conflicts. And I'm learning to explore them and see all the different ways that can move a story, that can bring me structure. And it's very much off of N.K. Jemison's model. I was just listening to a bit of her master class, but definitely starting from the world and building up the culture and the people and the religion from there. And that's what I am learning to do. But I admit that currently it is a bit more clumsy, and is the reason for me having to do multiple rewrites of books, trying to figure out what that thing is that makes the world feel a little bit more like a wisp of smoke and less like a city that you might actually want to look up and see if it's really there. But for me, like figuring out what the weather of the places has really been helping me to ground the world. What's the weather, and is that normal? And if it's not normal, why not? And what is that prompting the characters to do and how they move?
Because I know you have been reading on writing and world building, like as you've been doing that. Has that like helped to enhance the world?
I actually stopped reading that just before I got to world building, not because it got bad, just because I'm very busy, y'all. And I'm like juggling 3 books on craft books right now. It was beginning to talk about culture, which I think is hugely important. And Jordan F. Wicko has said this before about culture and religion. Like, it's very weird that YA fantasy often has like one people group that it focuses and not in like relation to another, or like one god. Like, that's not how the world works. So like I do read a lot of, I'm building a collection of craft books, but I also listen to how writers talk about how they built a world and what they think of the trends of the genre that I'm writing, and be it an adult spec fic or YA fantasy. But for sure, these books are helping me just think about like, not so much of like what to do, but the way to do it and the way to name what is missing, so that I can address it and plan for it in the next project.
I was trying to push you towards talking about, because I remember just like when you were reading it and we were having our meetings, just like the difference in how like just how real the world felt for me as your CP, reading what you were like coming up with that I didn't have any idea about from just reading the book. And it's like, oh wow, like this world is like intense, and there are a lot of like different things that are like, because of what I've seen, like of course it's in our world, it's not in the fantasy world. So I was just like, I just wanted to like talk about that, because like that was such a dope experience, like being on the other side of it.
Here's the thing. On writing and world building, the first part of that book talks a lot about exposition and like how to deliver facts without it being like front loading information. Very helpful. Remembering what you're hearing what you're talking about now, that actually, I'm sure that helped, and it helped me to like figure out how I wanted to incorporate things. But I actually got like the currency of my world. What is the weather in this place? What is the history? What have been the insurrections, the riots? What is the government structure? Why is it that way? How do people feel about that? That, like I said, multiple influences, and I'm never like cognizant enough to name all of them. But it was the world building Bible that was helping me to go through that. Okay. And I will send the link to Cache so she can put it in the description box. Y'all, it's so good, because I I'm a character chick. I just am. I will always be, and I don't want to change. So that makes it difficult for me to think about, like, how is she paying for this transportation? What is the transportation in a secondary fantasy? Especially when, like Cache said, I am trying to focus more on the second world than the first. Because, like, I know what the currency is here and whatever. What is the currency in the second world? The government X, Y, and Z. And I was having trouble thinking about all of the parts of world building. There's this thing called the Worldbuilding Bible. I cannot call the woman's name now, but it's so good. There's like literally like 20 sections to this world building, and it goes from weather, healing, common apparel, who wears that apparel, what is the food, what's the plant life, what is their medical community like is it like doctors or are there healing people? Like, it's very, very thorough, and that is what helped me decide how, like, what I wanted, like the different threads I wanted in this tapestry of my world. That I want to account for X or no, that I want to talk about this or not, what I want to say this thing is. And so it was really the world building Bible that helped, but 100% on writing and world building was very helpful for helping me solve the problem of, like, how to communicate all this once I decide. Once I decide what the currency is, how do I say that without being like, the currency of this place is X and $1 is equal to 3 of these? Like, how do I do that? On writing and world building is really helpful for that. So definitely check it out and check in the description box for this world building Bible link. It's a website. It's free. She has a little tip jar in the corner of her page. It's super cute. So if you can, definitely give to that, because, like, her advice is giving to us.
I, as a new reader of fantasy, like we've talked about this, like I'm just like a new person to get into that, and like the fantasy science fiction, like go into that as an adult was NK. And so with that, there is so much world building and so much that you get wrapped up in, that while I was reading what you had, I was like, I could see myself getting lost in this world. And I could see myself being like, okay, where's book 2? Okay, where's book 3? Because, like, you've created this world, and I know that there's going to be so many other things that have to happen. So, and I'm not like trying to like blush or like make you blush or gush about your story or nothing, but more so just about, like, I remember, like, one, watching the like excitement in you as we would talk about stuff and whatnot, but I also remember being more excited about the world and the book, because, and of course, it's stuff that, like, most readers will probably never really know because it's back in stuff. Yeah. But it made for such a rich world. I knew that there were other books, but I thought that was that book. So thank you for like dropping that, so you know whatnot. Okay, so were there anything else you wanted to talk about the process or world building for this video?
I mean, nothing other than the fact that, like, I cannot stress the importance of having critique partners that you trust. And let me just pull in here. You should vet your critique partners because they're important to your writing process. If you have not read that person's work, you want to pause before you agree to a critique partnership. And I heard this from I want to say it was Namina Forna, because she was doing like a week of IG lives in her Gilded Ones pre-order campaign. And she gave very good advice. Your critique partner should have something that you want to grow in, and you should have something that your critique partner wants to grow in, so that it is a mutually beneficial partnership. If you're telling your critique partner the same thing every week and they're not responding to the feedback, they're not growing, time is being wasted, growth isn't happening. Are you finding their feedback useful? Are you learning anything from their writing style? Not just their feedback to your writing. Do you learn how to be a better world builder, dialogue, descriptor from reading their work? And you can't know that just from talking to them. We can all talk a good game and like click in energy, but is their writing instructive? And if it's not, that should be the difference between a writing partner, as in someone who you write with and y'all have good energy, and a critique partner with someone who you plan to grow in your writing together with. Because for me, as Cache knows, I am a will-o'-the-wisp when it comes to calling a project done or deciding where to move in a direction for a project. I will have 5,000 very good ideas, but I need someone to say at one point, What was the problem with the last idea? We're staying there. Why can't you apply to this call for papers, or this workshop, or this pitch content? Why? No, it's done. Apply. Like, you need someone who can help you with that. So for me, a huge part of the process that I'm getting to is knowing how to end things. And I have critique partners and writing partners who can call me in from my, like, one more thing, I don't know, and like, no, I read it and it's solid, and you actually just need to like put the last period and write the end and then go about your way. So that's the last thing I would say about process, is like your team who's going through that process very closely with you are very important.
I would definitely agree with that. I would say that I definitely got super lucky because I definitely picked my CPs off of like people that like I vibed with and I liked, and it just happened that like our writing and everything, like I learned from them, they helped me, I helped them. Because yeah, I definitely got lucky because I just knew, like, I was like, I think it was because for me, I was like going to critique sessions once I like knew what they were virtually. And for me, originally, all the people that were critiquing my work didn't look like me. And that was a problem because
for obvious reasons,
differently. We experience things differently. And there are some times where, do I really need to explain this? Or if you know, type of moments. And so originally, like, I was like, no, I want Black CPs. And that was what I went for. And not to say that was like the wisest decision. Again, I was blessed. It came out really well for me. Like, I definitely appreciate all my CPs. I learned something from each and every one of them. I love their writing. I'm interested in their stories. Like, and also the other thing all my CPs have done that I have never done is wrote the end on a novel. That was very important to me to have, like you said, you need to be able to learn something, to be able to have people that had got to the point where they were satisfied enough to write the end. They were satisfied enough to go to the next draft and redraft another novel and do it that way. Like, that meant something to me because it's a level I haven't reached yet. And I know there's various reasons for that, but a good portion of it is I didn't have people around me that were doing that. I was always doing more than the people around me. And sometimes, no, not sometimes, all the time, you need people that are doing better than you around you. Not for you to take their shine or anything like that, but for you to learn from, because they are always there to teach you something. And in saying that, I still have CPs that aren't Black, right? Because I still need that. I still understand the need for various opinions. I still understand the need for people. I understand the wisdom in, like, my CP that isn't Black. Like, she's published books, so not just written the end, but she's published, and she knows what that process is like. She knows what it's like to hire an editor, what to do with, when you're trying to design your book cover. She formats her own books. That's a big deal. So that means that I'm like learning from her as well. And so also, I happen to love her stories. So for what you're saying as far as like CPs, I just 110,000% agree. I am saying that I was not wise enough. I was just like happy and wanting to write with people that look like me, but luckily it turned out well. But in that, to say that, definitely agree with you, and to pay attention to who you're choosing and what you're learning from. And it's okay to not necessarily like officially demote someone, but to change the relationship in which you have with that person. Maybe it's not critiquing, maybe it is just, let's write together. Hey, I need an accountability partner. Like, those things change, that does. For me, all my critique partners, almost always after critique, we write for like an hour or two together. Like, it's always trying to get those things done. So yeah. But I think that's all. I think the only thing I would want to add is that I believe that as a writer, your process is always growing. It's always changing. It will always be different depending on, what you're doing and where you're going and what genre you are. And so I just want to encourage you, whoever's watching this, that not to be upset when your process starts to not work anymore, be able and willing and flexible enough to change and find what works now, because you are supposed to grow as a writer. What worked for me when I was 15 didn't work at 25 and is not working at 30. So like, just be okay with that, and I think you'll do fine. So all right, guys. Well, we want to thank you guys so much for giving us some of your time. I feel like this is one of the shorter writerly conversations that we've ever had. So, we don't take up too much of your time this month, partially because we're coming off of like a Camp Nano and trying to get stuff finished and whatnot. So it's more so like, it's a lot going on. April has been a very crazy, crazy month, like writing wise, world wise, life wise. So May, we just coming at you a little soft, but next month we got Juneteenth, so we're gonna come hard, super hard, right? So there's that. Okay. So if you saw last month's video, at the end we had a group poem project that we wanted to do, and so now Britt is going to read the poem that we got.
Yay! Okay. Only one person participated, played our little reindeer game, but that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. 3 is a community, so we're going to hold the community. Right. So the poem, the comment poem. If I said it twice, I mean that, or it's better with more of us, I've witnessed it. It's more than mere words, colors, and shapes. It's life, death, healing, it's transformation. It's in our breath, our step, our sway, the choice we make to live each day, faltering maybe, but never truly failing or falling away.
For 3 people to like create that flowed very well.
I just need a few good men.
Right.
That's all I need.
We didn't need a bunch of people. Those 3 stanzas were like, okay.
Bars on bars on bars. We did it.
I like that.
So shout out to Mystery Post for playing our reindeer game. We appreciated it. Your words are necessary and appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That I like that. I like that. But do want to thank you guys so much for watching. What should we do? What should they do this video if they made it this far?
If you made it this far in the video, you can either just comment growth in the process, or you can tell us how your writing process has grown and changed as you have written.
Yes, I would love that. I would love to hear about like changes in writing processes. I will say this just randomly, one thing that has like become a thing is when I am writing on a specific project, I have to light a candle. Like, it's something about that candle. And so y'all know me, if you watch my channel, I love wood candles, and like hearing that like crackle, like it's like a mini fire, like gets me like, yep, about to tell this story.
Gather around the campfire.
Yeah, I promise you, get you a wood candle. It'll change your life. It's a little expensive, but it'll change your life. Go to TJ Maxx like I do.
Okay. So I'm Britt. My channel is Britt Writerly. It's a book and author tube where I talk about the intersections of literature and culture. I do writing vlogs. I do some bookish content, a few tags, some social commentary. If like something really pops off and I'm like, this has a bookish, because it always has a bookish plug all the time, every time. We're never outside of the novelistic world. But anyway, so that's what I do over there. And it's like book reviews, commentary, whatever. And also original content. I'm not on a hiatus, but I'm like scaling back how often I post. So now it's once or twice a month, but I have a large backlist. So go click around on the channel. If you watch a video, just give it a thumbs up and put some kind of comment, a black heart if you want to. And then if you watch a few while we're dating and you're like, I think that I could commit to this internet relationship, you hit that big red button and we, my dear, will be internet what? Friends. Okay.
As usual, I had a great time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope y'all have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye.